This is America on the Road, named Best Radio Show by the International Automotive Media Conference, and now in its 27th year on the air. Thanks for being with us as we bring you the latest automotive information from around the world. Ferrari is showing well-heeled customers its soon-to-go-on-sale $400,000 SUV. And we have to ask, is Enzo Ferrari rolling over in his grave? Toyota has just pulled the wraps off its racy GR Corolla, and we'll give you all the details. Co-host Chris Teague must be drooling about this one, maybe raving. We'll see his reaction to that. I know he's a Toyota fanboy. Meanwhile, this is Detroit Auto Show week, and we'll have Jeep news out of the show for you. There are two new Jeep 4xE submodels to talk about, so talk about them. And a Michigan-based startup called Our Next Energy has unveiled a new anode-free battery pack designed to slash cell costs as much as 50%. We've talked about them a little bit before. We have to ask, could this be the battery breakthrough the world is looking for, or will this be another dud? America on the Road is brought to you by Mercury Insurance and DrivingToday.com. If you're looking to save some money, you should switch to Mercury for your auto and home insurance. Californians save an average of $670 with Mercury, so imagine how much you could save. Get a quote today at DrivingToday.com/auto insurance. That's DrivingToday.com/auto-insurance. Hi, I'm Jack Nerad. With me is co-host Chris Teague, back after a week off. And Chris lives at one end of the country. I live at the other. Each week we get together to talk about cars, the car industry, ways we can make car ownership better for you if we can. Chris, we've had very hot weather here in California. Question I have for you is, across the country, are you starting to see fall set in up in Maine?
You know, I'm looking out my window now at some very green leaves, but later this week we're going to see temps in the 40s, and the leaves will start to change. So looking forward to some road trips to do some leaf peeping with the rest of New England and all of New York, it seems, here in a few weeks when they head this way.
You know, it's kind of wacky. We have leaves changing out here in California already. In fact, they were changing in August, which I don't get, but, we have some gum trees across the street that are changing to red, so go figure, leaves falling in the yard. I'll have to do the blowing out of all that stuff coming up, but there you go. What vehicle will you be talking about this week?
I spent a week with the Nissan Rogue. It's the new Nissan Rogue, the Platinum trim, so I'm excited to talk about that with you.
Yeah, and I have somewhat of a competitor to it. I have the Toyota RAV4 TRD Off Road, so it's a little off-road oriented, a little different than probably the Rogue you're driving. But its name tells you a lot about its orientation. We'll give you an idea if it lives up to expectations coming up. We also have a terrific guest for everyone. We'll be talking with Carley Bly. She is Lexus University expert on the all-new Lexus RX, the 2023 Lexus RX. Their most important vehicle by far. At a recent driving event in the central coast of California, I sat down with her for an in-depth look at that vehicle, so we'll chat with her about that. But before we do anything else, we'll be bringing you some of the most important auto-related news from around the world, so stay with us. Welcome back, everybody, to America on the Road with Chris Teague. This is Jack Nerad with you. We're glad Chris is back with us this week after a week off where Matt DiLorenzo was filling in for him. But this is news time, and we have some pretty cool news. Ferrari has this $400,000 SUV that it's putting out there, the 12-cylinder Purosangre. Number one, if you're naming a vehicle, probably naming it something that's easier to pronounce than Purosangre, and when you look at it, you don't know anyway how to pronounce it, is a good idea. But I guess maybe that makes it exclusive, right? You're a part of the club if you actually know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, thoroughbred or purebred, I believe, is what it actually means. Everything about Ferrari is exclusive. If you can even walk into a dealership and buy one, you're part of the club. So pronouncing it, I guess, is just another password at the door.
Right. A lot of people are making a lot out of the fact that this is a gasoline-powered car versus a hybrid. And, of course, it's an SUV from Ferrari, which has me scratching my head. I was lucky enough to meet Enzo Ferrari once upon a time and spent some time talking with him. And he was all about racing cars. I mean, he wasn't even excited about their street performance cars. So I think he's probably in heaven, not going to be real excited about an SUV bearing his name. But I guess that's what these companies need to do to stay afloat. And a lot of brands like this are selling more SUVs than they're selling sports cars, starting with Porsche, of course.
Yeah, if you look back at the Cayenne, of which one I owned, those vehicles save companies. And if Ferrari needs to do that to keep the doors open, I think Enzo may be disappointed, but I think he'll be happy to see the lights on.
Yeah. So we'll see how that sells. It's going to be fairly limited in terms of production. They're probably going to make, 10,000, 11,000 of them. I think they're going out the door quickly, or at least orders are being taken quickly for this vehicle. And it makes sense. It's a cool looking vehicle. I mean, if you wanted a racy Ferrari SUV, I mean, it would look exactly like what the Purosangre looks like, right?
Yeah, I don't think they call it an SUV, do they? They call it a four-door Ferrari, right? So they're looking at this thing as just an extension of their sports car line, although most people probably won't outside of the company.
So it does have this electric active suspension that I think should stand in good stead. 725 horsepower from its V12, 6.5 liter V12 engine. So certainly powerful enough, and pretty high top speed. I think, up toward 190 miles an hour or something like that, I think is the top speed for this thing. So that's all Ferrari kind of numbers.
Yeah, a little bit quicker than I need to go on the way to school drop-off, though. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe away from school drop-off. Get out of there as quick as you can. Yep. Well, here's, I'm not sure whether this is an appropriate car for school drop-off either, but I'd like to talk about the GR Corolla from Toyota, from Gazoo Racing. You've got to be excited about this, right?
Yeah, I kind of kicked myself after I leased the GTI, seeing this thing being announced, because I was not sure that we were going to see it. But what a fantastic package, right? Manual transmission, all-wheel drive. It's a 3-cylinder engine, but man, what an engine. And I think they did great with the styling. So, predictably, Jack, I'm on board with this car.
Yeah, I mean, 3-cylinder engine that puts out 300 horsepower. I mean, this is a highly stressed engine that originally started out, I think, in the Yaris, was where it comes from. Not as much torque as maybe you'd expect, less torque than horsepower, 273 pound-feet of torque, something like that. But 0 to 60 time of 5 seconds. I mean, how do you think this will compare with the GTI that lives in your driveway right now?
Well, the GTI, and more specifically the Golf R, right, because it's got all-wheel drive and it has the 300 horsepower as well. I think it's going to compare pretty well. It's going to blow the GTI out of the water. It's got 60 more horsepower than my GTI. I think 30 more pound-feet of torque, or 20 more pound-feet of torque. I don't know what the car weighs, but all-wheel drive is going to get that power down more efficiently, and it's going to go around corners quicker. So, as I said, I kind of wish I had waited to pick this one up.
Well, and it's interesting, too, with the all-wheel drive, you can dial in the torque split that you want, which I think is fascinating. I mean, usually these are left up to the machine to figure out, what the torque split will be. But you can tailor that to 60-40, 50-50, 30-70. I think that's really kind of fascinating, isn't it?
That is, because you get, the security of all-wheel drive, if you want to put it that way, but then the sort of enthusiast-friendly side, you can go almost all rear-wheel drive, right? So you said 30-70, so you could probably get the tail out with that much torque. So that's exciting.
Yeah. And how about this intelligent manual transmission? I mean, talk about that a little bit. That's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, Toyota does a good manual transmission, although they don't do it enough. I'm excited to see this one. With some of the features that they've included, I think it has rev matching, which I really enjoy. It kind of takes some of the pain out of downshifting, takes some of the brain, I guess, out of downshifting, if you want to put it that way. Somebody's going to yell at me for that, I'm sure, but it works well for me, and I've experienced it in other cars, and I can't wait to see it. So all around, I think the features they put in this car, you mentioned the torque vectoring, the torque splitting, the limited slip differential, all-wheel drive, put some good tires on it, and I think it would be a beast up here in the snow. So I would really, really looking forward. Toyota, send me one. I would love to drive it.
Yeah, well, got a choice of tires depending on the edition you get. Also, big brakes, really big brakes. I'm curious to see what this thing is about, and I think Toyota was pretty tired of hearing from Volkswagen and hearing from Honda, people, and there's a new Civic Type R that's coming out that should be fairly cool too. So we'll have to see how all that works out. But it will be interesting for certain. And I hope we both get some seat time in these vehicles pretty quickly. Well, let's talk a bit about these variants from Jeep. New 4xe variants of the Grand Cherokee was one of the things introduced at the Detroit Auto Show. They're celebrating 30 years of Grand Cherokee with this, and it is the 30th anniversary edition. I like the Grand Cherokee 4xe. I think it's probably the best Grand Cherokee out there. What's your take on that vehicle?
I agree. The 4xe powertrain is quite good. It's very smooth, it's refined, and I think the added torque down low gives the Grand Cherokee the sort of grunt that it needed without the giant, V8, without a Hemi engine under the hood. So I like it. I think it works well. I haven't had a chance to use it off road, so we'll have to see how that goes. A lot of others haven't reported back with positive results.
It's got remarkable capabilities off road. I had a chance to drive it off road at one of the introduction events, and I just like it. I like it a lot. The other 4xe that they have introduced at the Detroit show is the Wrangler 4xe Willys, and I love that. I love the Willys name on any Jeep. Of course, it dates back to the origins of the Jeep, which is pretty cool. I think in the Wrangler form too, that 4xe powertrain really works well, and it works well off road too.
It does. I can't stress enough that added torque down low is a big improvement over the Wrangler comes standard with a V6. You can get I think you get a turbo 4 in there, but it's a really big benefit off road.
Yeah. Interestingly, the Wrangler 4xe is the best-selling plug-in hybrid vehicle in the United States. And that's a head scratcher. Who would have thought that would be the case? But that is the case. And the 4xe is the new Willys is the new entry level, and it costs $54,000. I mean, that's entry level, but that's a pretty stiff price. I mean, talk to me about the value there.
Value. Well, if you're going to buy a Jeep Wrangler, you're going to spend the money either way. People who want to buy a Wrangler are going to buy that. I think the powertrain for the right person is worth the money. I mean, it is a pricey upgrade to the Wrangler if you look at it compared to comparable options. Otherwise, would I spring for the money if I were buying a Wrangler? Probably not. But then again, I would probably not buy a Wrangler for a daily driver. It would be more of a weekend toy for me. So, I mean, I guess it really depends on where you fall. If you're using it for commuting, yeah, probably be a good idea.
Yeah. Well, and I think the neat thing too is you can turn off the electric only or hybrid system and save your electric power for when you're driving off road, and then use it out there. And there, I mean, 20 or 30 miles of range on electricity goes a long way when you're going really slow and crawling through the woods, and doing that silently is probably a pretty cool thing to do.
Yep. And then you've got a gas engine to take you home at the end of the day. So
yeah. And you want to get home probably and out of the mosquitoes. Well, I want to talk a bit about this battery that we alluded to in the opening segment. I think the cool thing about it is it uses two different types of battery cells, one for short-term use and one for long-term use. And maybe that's the answer. I don't know. I mean, certainly when you are talking about a startup, there could be a lot of hype in here. But what's your quick take on what that might do for us?
Well, I think the more options we have with battery tech, the better. The quicker we could get more technologies to market, improve charging times, range, safety, all those things, it's better for consumers.
Absolutely true. Well, when we come back, we will be talking about two very interesting vehicles, the Nissan Rogue and the Toyota RAV4 in TRD Off Road trim. So stay with us for that. With Chris Teague, this is Jack Nerad with you, and thanks so much for being with us right here on America on the Road. Welcome back, everybody, to America on the Road with Chris Teague, Jack Nerad with you. And it's road test time. And we have two pretty comparable vehicles in the really hottest segment of the market. That is the compact SUV segment of the market. Chris, you were driving the Nissan Rogue. Tell us about your findings there.
I spent the week with the Nissan Rogue, Jack, and we talked a little bit about this last year when I drove it and the Mitsubishi Outlander back to back. Man, what a big upgrade the recent generation Rogue is over the previous generation. I think the previous model became almost a punchline. People love to kind of rag on the transmission and the sort of floppy driving dynamics, but all that is gone. This is an all new vehicle. This is last year, or 2021, I think, was the upgrade. So for 2022, Nissan added a 3-cylinder engine over the 4-cylinder engine that it had before. And in 2023, it gets a few new options, and some of the trim levels shuffle around a little bit. I tested the top platinum model, Jack. The vehicle starts at around 30, in the low $30,000 range. This one came in at just under $40,000. As I mentioned, it's a turbocharged 3-cylinder engine. It makes 201 horsepower, 225 pound-feet of torque. My vehicle had all-wheel drive. Front-wheel drive is standard, though, and through a continuously variable transmission is what sends power to the wheels. Jack, I think Nissan does a CVT better than almost anybody else. What do you think about their continuously variable transmissions? I can see your smile coming.
Well, I think for most people, they won't be as critical of a CVT as we are as enthusiast drivers. There's some weird characteristics about them, but I think Nissan has tuned most of those out of the current model, and it's not nearly as objectionable to me as it was before. And I think for most people, they won't care a bit about it.
I agree with that. Acceleration is smooth. The interior of the vehicle is very quiet. Nissan did a good job with noise cancellation and noise insulation, I will say. When you sit inside the vehicle, you really do feel isolated from the outside world, which is surprising. Point and from the brand, right? Nissan's a mainstream brand. The Rogue has seating for 5. If you need seating for more than that, the Mitsubishi Outlander, which is mechanically similar, does have fold-away third-row seats. They're very small third-row seats, I will say that. But if you need them, they are there. As I mentioned, acceleration is smooth. Pretty good acceleration from a 3-cylinder engine. We didn't have any snow. We're here in late summer, so I didn't get to test the all-wheel drive, but it's smooth. It's refined. As I mentioned, it's quiet. Plenty of power for cruising around town. Highway driving is much the same as well. Inside, this vehicle has quilted leather, which is shockingly upscale for a Nissan Rogue. You get cloth in the base trims. They feel good too. I tested one of those last year. I don't think anybody could go wrong buying a base Rogue, Jack. It's pretty nice all the way through. Have you had a chance to sit and drive one? And what do you think of the improvements with the new generation?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to go on the launch event out here in California, and I was really impressed with the new Nissan Rogue. I think they've done a great job with it. As you say, the upper level trim is very, very luxe. It is luxury-like. I mean, absolutely luxury-like. You could, put an Infinity badge on there and it wouldn't be out of place at all. I like the vehicle a lot.
Yeah, don't tempt them with the Infinity badge. We'll see that next year, the QX35 or whatever. Anyway, inside again, plenty of technology. I'm going to talk about the top level here. Lower trims may have different features, but my tester has the top end infotainment system. It's a 9-inch display. It comes with navigation. It's got a 3D display for buildings. So if you're in town, you can kind of tilt the display and it shows a 3-dimensional view. It's kind of a gimmick, but it's nice if you want it. I use Apple CarPlay, Apple Maps, and Google Maps. So that's not something that is really a big deal for me. Wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are present here, and they work very quickly. You start the car up and your phone is connected. By the time you get settled in and buckled the car, the phone is connected to the car and you're ready to go. Optional head-up display here shows traffic sign information and safety alerts, and of which safety equipment, I should start that over, safety equipment, of which there is a lot, includes blind spot monitoring, forward collision alerts, rear cross traffic alerts, and the list goes on and on, Jack. This is a value-packed car. It's hard to call one at $40,000 cheap, but I think what you're getting for that 40 grand justifies the price tag.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, a compact SUV at 40 grand, but like I say, pretty much a luxury vehicle in that trim. And I think you can get a Nissan Rogue for well under $30,000 as an entry level. So that makes some sense. Well, the vehicle I was testing is the RAV4 TRD Off Road. This generation of the RAV4, it's the 5th generation of the RAV4, was introduced in 2019. So, a few miles on it now, since we're entering the 2023 model year. But the TRD Off Road Edition was all new for 2022. I'm getting a chance to drive it. It has a base list price of a little over $36,000. So I think it'll probably option up about equal to the Rogue Limited that you were driving, right around 40K or so. It has the same engine as all RAV4s have, the 2.5-liter four-cylinder gasoline engine with the 8-speed direct shift automatic transmission. Fuel economy is pretty good, although a little less good in the TRD Off Road Edition than it is in the LE model, which is the high fuel economy, but still good stuff. It offers pretty serious ground clearance, 8.6 inches of ground clearance. So you like that. It has TRD alloy wheels with all-terrain tires. That's important. And, you know, I think a key bit of what's going on here. All-wheel drive equipped, as I say, as you would expect with an off-road edition. Not the two-speed transfer case that you're going to see in Jeeps, but fairly capable off-road. It also has the dynamic torque vectoring all-wheel drive with disconnect, rear driveline disconnect. So that's all to the good. What's your take on the RAV4 as an off-roader and versus, say, the 4Runner, which is kind of the dedicated off-roader of, you know, similar size?
Well, Toyota is just one of many automakers doing this with their small SUVs right now. So Subaru's got the Wilderness trim going. Hyundai and Kia, or Hyundai has is it the XR or whatever that is. And so I think it's clever. They're going to sell as many as they can make. And that's evidenced by the fact that you probably can't buy one for MSRP right now. But they've got the style. They've got enough off-road capability to take most people where they need to go, right? 8 point whatever inches of clearance you said. That's pretty serious. That's more than most people would use. It could take you camping, it could take you light off-roading. So I think they've done a good job hitting the target market, right? People who want to appear to be able to go off-road, but may not be able to use the capability of a 4Runner, which is pretty hardcore when you look at it.
Yeah, I mean, you got the looks. You have a much better driving experience day to day, I think, in the RAV4 than you would have in the 4Runner, which, you know, basically is a truck and kind of beats you up a little bit for your off-roading. All RAV4s now have the Toyota multimedia, which is a big improvement over the previous Toyota multimedia efforts. This is their North American homegrown thing that they've done, and I think a big advantage. You know, still a little glitzy or a little glitchy, both glitzy and glitchy, I guess, at times. What's your take on it? You've probably driven some Toyotas with the new system. What's your take on it?
It is light years ahead of where it was, but as you mentioned, it still has progress to make before it catches up with a Uconnect from Stellantis or Ford's Sync. But again, much better than it used to be.
Yeah. Well, I think overall, I'm a big fan of the RAV4. One of my daughters drives a 4th generation RAV4. It has been a stellar vehicle for her, and I just think it's such a good all-around vehicle. There's a reason that it sells so well. I think in TRD off-road form, it gives the most off-roaders what they need, right? Or most people who at least hope to be an off-roader, right? Gives them what they need and maybe no more, and for a pretty palatable price. So I think it's a good value.
I agree.
And we have the Rogue also as a pretty good value. So I think we're liking what we've seen from our road test vehicles this time around. So good stuff. Good stuff from both those vehicles. And there's reasons that those are, you know, hot selling vehicles in the marketplace. Well, when we come back, we will be talking with Carley Bly. She works at Lexus University. I wonder how their football team is doing this year. We'll have to ask her about that. I guess I didn't ask her about that. But she'll be talking about the all-new 2023 Lexus RX. Very exciting. I was driving at the driving event on the Central Coast of California. Chatted with her about this. She's an expert on that. So stay with us for that. And with Chris Teague, this is Jack Nerad with you. Thanks so much for being with us right here on America on the Road. Welcome back, everybody, to America on the Road. Jack Nerad with you. We're in Santa Maria, California, driving an interesting vehicle with a great guest, a terrific guest, an expert on the Lexus RX, the new 2023 Lexus RX. Carley Bly is with Lexus College. You help all kinds of Lexus people understand this vehicle better than they do now, right?
I do.
That's important. Thanks so much for being with us. Tell us a bit about RX. It's a really important vehicle for Lexus, isn't it?
RX is a very important vehicle for us. Right now, I think we're so excited because it's helping continue to move the brand forward. We look at 4 really important pillars with it, and it checks all the boxes. We're looking at technology, electrification, design, and performance. And with the all-new RX, we've hit it out of the park.
Let's dive into one of those that I think is not necessarily intuitive to somebody who's thinking about Lexus, right? Which is performance.
Yeah.
I mean, luxury, yes. Comfort, tech, probably. But performance, not necessarily so much. But certainly in this new RX, tons of performance, right?
100% yes. So there's multiple variations, right? Multiple powertrains. The biggest one, though, to speak to performance is the RX 500h, which is our S-Sport Performance all-wheel drive model. Now, this one is hands down the performance model if customers are looking for one. And the reason is it's the first time we've ever had a turbo paired with a hybrid system. So not only that, it also has a very intelligent all-wheel drive system called RAV4, both of which add benefit for the customer, especially in those performance situations when they're really looking to hunker down close to the ground and cornering and get a more linear connection with the vehicle. This one is going to be the choice for them.
Expand on that a little bit, because I think a lot of our listeners hear hybrid and they go, well, I don't know about performance. I understand fuel efficiency. I understand that it's much more efficient than a typical gasoline-powered vehicle. But why performance? Tell us about that.
So 500h is a completely new powertrain for us, right? So not only did I mention it's a 2.4 turbo paired with the hybrid system, the other thing is it's paired with a 6-speed automatic transmission. That is completely new for us, and it's driven by performance. So you have those aspects paired with a rear e-axle in the back, which is a larger motor, which is going to help really give that performance to the vehicle while keeping it a hybrid. So yes, you are correct, right? There are some added benefits occasionally with fuel economy, especially with hybrids. That's why people traditionally buy them. But in this case, yes, it is a hybrid variation, but it is truly meant for performance when you look at all of the different pieces under the hood and under the vehicle.
So one of the important things with 2023 RX is you're offering 2 different hybrid powertrains, right? I mean, the kind of more traditional hybrid powertrain and then this performance-oriented hybrid powertrain, where the front wheels are driven by the turbo engine, right? And then the rear wheels have the supplemental electric power.
Correct. So they're slightly different, right? When you look at them, the RX 350h is for that buyer that is more fuel efficient conscious, if you'll say, right? It's still a great vehicle. It's luxury. It's comfort. It's all the things that a customer would want in an RX. And they're getting that great fuel economy with the added benefit of an all-wheel drive system. And the all-wheel drive system on that vehicle is really geared towards, again, when the driver needs it in slippery road conditions or losing traction. That's when it's really going to kick in. However, it's going to default back to better fuel economy when it's not needed. The difference in that 500h is the fact that it is really geared towards performance. So those front and rear components are going to work together to give more of a performance drive feel versus only when you're needing it in slippery conditions, right? So you're going to send more power to the rear, especially when driving on tight corner roads, you need more torque distribution, those kinds of things. The physical direct force system is a much more intelligent all-wheel drive system. It knows when to send power to which wheels to enhance performance, more so than maybe just having wheel slippage.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Absolutely, and we've experienced it today, and it absolutely works. At the same time, the bulk of your sales are going to be with a conventional powertrain, right? Tell us about that.
So the 350 is our gas. It is going to be something that is 70% of the sales roughly. I know Sakiko, you spoke with, has a lot of the marketing information she's provided, but yes, that is going to continue to be the volume seller. Also looking at the volume grades will be the premium and the premium plus. But the gas in itself is the RX 350. Now this system is paired with a 2.4 liter turbo and an 8-speed automatic transmission. So it has 275 horsepower and 317 feet-pound of torque. Now that is an increase over current generation. So everyone's going to ask the question, why did the change come between V6 to 2.4 turbo? And all I can say is drive the car, because that additional torque makes up for it completely.
I think with turbos now, current turbos, less totally performance oriented, but allows much better tuning and a broader torque curve. Am I right with that? And that improves drivability kind of across the board.
I mean, you tell me you drove a vehicle. What do you think?
I thought it was very nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
it feels very, very good. And you certainly don't miss the V6. And I think you're probably getting added fuel economy, you're getting a broader torque curve and just better drivability overall.
Correct. All in all, it's like I said, I think all three powertrains are really going to be able to meet the needs of all of the customers and what they're wanting.
Let's talk about the interior of this vehicle. Very, very important. It's a luxury brand vehicle, certainly. A lot of luxury and a lot of variations within the interior. Walk us through that a little bit, would you?
So depending on what the model, the grade, all of the differences between them, right? There is a lot of options. And the reason we did that is we wanted to give our customers the option to really pick what they wanted. So from an interior perspective, there's everything from New Lux, which is going to be the synthetic leather that's very, very durable. Then there's also...
And almost indistinguishable from leather for a lot of people, I think.
Very
right?
much so. You really can't tell the difference. If you go between the two, it's very difficult to tell which is which. So you have New Lux, you also have leather, and then there's also the addition of semi-aniline leather, which is even higher quality leather. So
why didn't you go to full aniline? That's why I always wondered that. It's always semi-aniline.
You know, it's a naming nomenclature.
Yeah, right. I maybe see that all the time. I've never seen full aniline leather, so I'm sorry.
No.
Facetious.
No, you know what? I think you make a very valid question of why don't we switch the name to it?
Yeah. But various seating opportunities in terms of seating fabric.
Yes.
At the same time, different levels of adjustability based on price, based on levels, based on the performance or lack of performance of the particular vehicle too, right?
Correct. So depending on what model, what grade customer chooses, there's a standard 8-way power seat and then an available 10-way, and that's going to be on the luxury grade, for example. Again, depending on if they get F-Sport handling, F-Sport performance, luxury, premium, there's going to be different options. If a customer chooses to get a leather seat, for example, they have the ability to get heated and ventilated rear seats for the first time in RX, and that's a 40-60 split with the outboard seats being heated and ventilated. The other
So
thing,
that middle seat person doesn't have that, but everybody else does.
correct, and that's, again, you can get it on the front passenger driver and then in the two rear, and then for customers that really want a convenience factor in the luxury and then in the F-Sport performance, they have the ability to have power folding rear seats.
Yeah, very nice, yeah. And this is a 2-row vehicle up till now. There might be a 3-row coming at some future date that you cannot confirm.
I was just going to say, I can't talk future product.
Yeah, you could nod, you could kind of wink and nod. Let's talk about infotainment.
Yep.
Big important thing, and kind of in a lot of ways has the potential to be a dissatisfier, right? I mean, people can get confused, it doesn't work the way they hope it would. It's critical here, and you have a couple options in terms of screen size. Just walk us through that whole process.
For sure. So on the entire lineup, the standard screen size is 9.8. Okay. It has an available option for 14-inch. Now again, depending on model grade, it's either an option or standard, but starting out on the standard grade, it's going to be the 9.8-inch infotainment screen. That is paired with interface, which is something we launched 2 vehicles ago on an X. And as you said, it has the potential to either be amazing or a learning curve. And in this case, we've really looked at it as how can we make sure everybody's well versed on it to be knowledgeable on it. And in doing so, people are starting to really understand this is a very driver-centric feature, right? It's designed in North America based on what the North American customer wants. So not only is it very heavy on voice commands, it's powered by Google Points of Interest for the dynamic navigation that just constantly updates, which is awesome. You have wireless CarPlay as well as wireless Android Auto, or wired if you prefer, if you need to keep it charging. But hey, guess what? You don't have to plug it in because there is the available wireless charger, right? So there's a lot of features that pair with interface to really give that customer experience. The other thing we really need to make sure our customers are aware of are those user profiles that are in the vehicle with interface. And the reason that's so important is, again, it goes back to customizing the experience. The first thing I do when I get into a car that's not mine, that drives my mother crazy, for example, when I'm in her car, I adjust her mirrors, I adjust her seat, I adjust her radio. I do everything to make it how I want it to be. And every time I get out of the car, she gets mad because I've changed all of her settings and she gets really frustrated. So user profiles give those ability to really customize. So when I get in the vehicle, it knows, oh, Carly's getting in the car now. So in that case, we're going to move her seat to where she wants to be. Oh, I know she loves Sirius XM 56. We're going to turn it to her favorite channels, and there you go. You're in your vehicle, ready to go. You don't have to spend 5 minutes messing with all of those pieces.
Right. And you're a country music fan on top of that, aren't you?
I am.
You like the highway. My
I
wife
do.
does too. Well, that's cool. It's also a touchscreen system, right? And previously Lexus had some other systems that were not necessarily as intuitive, as, I think, to the North American driver, right? Walk us through that a little bit.
You know, we constantly look at what the customers want and we listen to feedback. That is an entire department in the division is voice of the customer, right? We want to hear what they're saying and how we can improve. That is a fundamental of the company is Kaizen, is how can we continue to improve. So by adding interface into our lineup, that really has listened to the need of, we need simplicity and we want the system to work for us. That's why it's voice activated, it's touchscreen. Everything is at the tip of your fingertips where you can touch a button and get where you need to, or you can just say, hey Lexus, take me to Starbucks, versus having to put it in the navigation as an example.
I think Toyota and Lexus went the extra mile to do this, right? I mean, they could have stuck with the system they'd had before and just tried to do training and tried to, work through some customer problems. Instead, they attacked it head on and decided, okay, we're going to change the system pretty markedly and go forward. And I think you're going to reap the benefits from that.
Well, I appreciate it. I know they've worked really hard on it. They still work on it constantly. That's the joy of it, is we just keep working to make it better.
With the 2023 Lexus RX, what is your favorite feature? What is something that you look at and go, wow, this is pretty cool, I like this?
I think, and it's a very small feature, and everybody's been laughing when I say it, but I genuinely mean this is my favorite feature. It's a two-part feature, and it's the rear hatch. So the rear hatch actually opens about 3 seconds faster. It is much quicker when opening.
Yeah, when you're holding grocery bags, that's a big deal, right?
It is a huge deal.
Yeah,
it really is. So for me, that's a huge feature. And then on top of it, it's got a locking feature that you can hit the button and it will lock as you walk away. So not only does it close, but then the entire vehicle locks. So as I'm taking all those groceries back into my apartment, I can load them up, press the button, or press the button first, and it will stay open for a certain amount of time when I grab everything and then leave, and I don't have to worry about the fact that I have to go back and close it and lock the car and do all the things with it.
I know you're kind of, Lexus, you probably not personally, but Lexus is trying to interest younger families in the RX. What are some of the features you think are most interesting to that demographic?
I think if you look at a lot of the features within the new RX, there's probably more than I can mention here, but I'll give you a few. Obviously, the hatch is a big piece, as I mentioned. That is huge for the buyer. It does have a foot-activated liftgate. That's also huge for families, right? Especially if you've got somebody that's got a family or kids walking around, they need to put multiple things in, they don't have hands available, kick, open. You look at safe exit assist. That is another huge feature. It's a convenience feature if you have kids in the back seat, or again, even teenagers, and you're parallel parked on the side of the road. You want to make sure.
Or old people who are not paying attention.
I mean, anybody, right?
Yeah.
Anybody that's looking to get out of the vehicle with oncoming traffic, the vehicle's constantly watching behind it within a certain amount of time being turned on or off, right? And then it alleviates that concern of, oh, I'm going to open the door into traffic. So obviously the system is a little more complex than that. However, high level, it is a fantastic convenience feature for those that are concerned. And again, our busybodies that spend time on parallel park roads, for example. So those are probably two really big ones.
Talk a bit about traffic assist, traffic jam assist, because I think that's interesting as well.
Yeah, traffic jam assist is a new feature on the RX. So it goes back to another convenience feature, which as we continue to add these in, they're all for driver benefit, right? There's a reason we create these features. It's not just because we think, oh, it's fun, let's just put new technology. There's a reason to why we do these, and a lot of it's to reduce driver fatigue or to make it, again, more convenient. In this case, Traffic Jam Assist is a system that works with two others, Dynamic Radar Cruise Control and Lane Trace Assist. And what it does is when the driver comes to a traffic jam situation on major highways, tollways, expressways, freeways,
whatever you want to call them.
Exactly, whatever you call it, whatever state you're in. I know it changes by state.
Yeah. Limited access highways.
Limited access highways. Yeah. If you're driving on a limited access highway and traffic gets below 25 miles per hour, it will automatically engage depending on the conditions around you. So what that does is it will actually allow the driver to go hands-free. Now it is constantly watching the driver. It wants to make sure you're still paying attention, your eyes are on the road.
It really does. In the drive today, it was monitoring where my eyes were. That's
exactly.
for sure. Don't be lollygagging, looking around too much.
Exactly. It's watching to make sure you're paying attention, you're not getting fatigued, but it does alleviate that strain when you're in traffic. It allows you to go hands-free. And again, it's pretty specific, 0 to 25 miles an hour, but it does automatically kick on and off if, again, engaged in all of the different features within Lexus Safety System Plus 3.0 are working in conjunction.
Cool. And when is RX coming to market?
We are looking for later this year, later 2022.
Oh, yeah, it is 2022, isn't it?
It is.
It's almost over, yeah.
It's almost
toward the
here.
end. Yeah, it's crazy. Isn't it? These are 2023 models. Well, Carley Bly, thanks so much for being with us. We do appreciate it. Expert on the RX for 2023. Thanks so much. And stay with us, everybody. We'll be right back right here on America on the Road. Welcome back, everybody, to America on the Road with Chris Teague, Jack Nerad back with you. We're glad Chris is back with us this week. And it is listener question time. We've come to the end of the show already. We're just rocketing through the show. And I always get a little sad at this time, a little wistful, because we're going to quit talking about cars for a while. But we do have a good listener question, I think, Chris. And what is it?
We do. This one's from Leonard. He's in Missoula, Montana. We were just talking one of the great cities of Montana. He's been looking for a plug-in hybrid SUV, Jack. He's been shopping, and he's looking for one of the better ones, and he wants to know if we have recommendations.
I have several recommendations, and I bet you do too. One of the ones I would point to is kind of the sister vehicle, the one we talked about in the show a little earlier, and that's the Toyota RAV4 Prime. I think that's a really excellent vehicle from so many points of view. It's the fastest of the RAV4s by far. It's got 302 net horsepower, 0 to 60 in 5.7 seconds. So that's pretty cool in and of itself. And then it has all the stuff that revolves around it being a plug-in hybrid, including the 94 MPGe number, which is a nice stout number. You know, that's a good number here. So I think, and it has everything that a RAV4 has, plus more acceleration. You're nodding your head. I think you like that vehicle a lot, right?
Yeah, adding a little bit of speed along with your fuel economy is never a bad thing, Jack.
Yeah. Well, I think you were saying when we were off air, you have one in your driveway that you think is a pretty cool one as well.
I do. I'm testing the Hyundai Tucson plug-in hybrid this week. I think that's an excellent option. And just like you mentioned, the Volvo plug-in hybrid powertrain a few weeks ago, Jack, I tested the XC60 last week, which is the Recharge plug-in hybrid, and that was an excellent choice as well. Yeah.
And I think the Jeep Grand Cherokee 4xe that we talked about a little earlier here, now there's a new 30th anniversary edition of the Grand Cherokee that is a 4xe, is another one to look at. And of course, there's the Wrangler Unlimited 4xe. That is the best-selling plug-in hybrid out there. So I think some pretty good choices we have for Leonard in Missoula, Montana, right?
Yeah, no shortage.
And Chris, always great to talk with you about cars. Thanks so much for co-hosting today.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I'll say if you like what you heard and you want to hear more, head to the SportsMap Radio website at sportsmapradio.com and check us out on the Saturday morning schedule. There you can find a radio-formatted podcast as well as our podcast on all the major platforms.
Right. Thanks to the SportsMap Radio Network stations for carrying America on the Road. We appreciate that. And, of course, we appreciate you listening to America on the Road. You're the reason we do what we do. So thanks so much for being out there. Thanks to Chris Teague for doing his great job of co-hosting. And we'll join you again next week for another edition of America on the Road.